Good morning and welcome to our construction sector panel of Build Your Future Arizona's Career Awareness Fair. My name is Scott Rager. I'm the Education Manager at DP Electric, and I'll be the moderator for this session. We're very glad to have you all joining us today. So, as you can tell from our breakout session title, we'll be discussing the primary construction sectors here in Arizona, which are commercial, residential, and civil. Now, I'll have our three construction professionals take about 30 seconds each to introduce themselves. Please tell us your name, who you work for, along with the number of years you've been there and your job title.
Do I go first? So good morning. I'm Rich Gallagher, and I'm excited to be part of today's conversation. I'm a native Arizona and proud graduate of the University of Arizona. I've been in construction my entire professional life, spanning the last 25 years. Currently, I'm the CEO of Synergos Companies. Synergos owns several different residential subcontractor companies headquartered in Arizona, with operations expanding through California and Nevada. And I'm excited to represent the residential construction industry today. So thank everybody for their interest in our awesome industry.
Hi, I'm Michelle Walker, and I am Vice President at SSC Underground. We're an underground utility contractor, and we are based here in Phoenix. And I have been at SSC for 22 years, and I grew up in the construction industry. I'm actually originally from Northern Alberta, Canada, and grew up the daughter of a contractor. And so I've been in construction my entire life. Happy to be here and hope to inspire some of you to join the construction industry as well.
Good morning. My name is Jack Murray. Been with HACI now for about 8 years. I'm the plumbing operations manager. Did 4 years in the Marine Corps back in the 80s. And been in construction my whole life. After I got out of the Corps, started in plumbing, started in residential, moved up to commercial, and very excited to be part of this today. Thank you.
Well, thank you all for that, your introductions, and welcome to today's session. So, the first question we have are, what are the different construction sectors? And we would like to have each of you tell us what makes your sector different than the others, the kinds of projects that fall in your sector, and provide some examples from across the valley that we all might recognize. Let's go ahead and start with Rich.
Yeah, thanks. So we work in the new home residential segment of our construction industry. The homes that we construct are mostly single family, which is to say they don't share common walls, and our condos are apartments. We work for large production home builders like Lennar, Toll Brothers, D.R. Horton, Pulte Homes, so on and so forth. And what makes new home construction really unique is that every single home that's built is different than the one before. Every home builder has their own preference in house design and material specifications, so our contractors need to be experienced and flexible in making thoughtful decisions on the job site to install product specific to that house in an efficient and highly functional manner. While it can be a challenge, to sort of work in that customized world, it's what also makes it really exciting for our employees that don't get performing the same task in the same manner each and every day. So when you drive around town and see, new home projects ranging from 10 lots to 10,000 lots, that's typically where our teams would be engaged.
Excellent. Thanks, Rich. How about you, Michelle?
So I'm representing the civil construction world. And so civil construction encompasses utility projects, transportation projects. So all of the required utilities to get water and sewer and electric and internet to the developments that Rich is building homes in, and the commercial buildings that Jack is building, that's dependent on the civil sector, as well as transportation. So everything from roads, freeways, light rail, public transit. that all falls under the civil sector. So I think you probably see and use projects that civil is involved in every day. I think something that makes our industry unique, the civil aspect of the industry, is just the public nature of it. So typically our projects are going to be publicly owned and driven a little bit more by public policy and even voting and things like that. So there's definitely more of a public and governmental aspect to some of the work that we do.
Excellent. Thank you. How about you, Jack?
Well, on the commercial side, I actually love commercial. It's pretty much every building you see besides a house and some of your smaller floored apartment buildings, from hospitals to stadiums to high-rise buildings, Home Depots, stores, retail, you name it. It's exciting for the guys because, like Rich was saying, they don't get burned out. They go into different projects. You know, one year they're doing hospitals, the next year they're doing Wild Horse Pass Casino, with 11 floors of hotel, a casino attached to it, convention center, you name it. So on the commercial side, yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's exciting, especially when you're dealing with the large projects such as the sports stadiums, which I've been involved with, like what used to be called Bank One Ballpark, Chase Field. It's just exciting because you look around town and you see the high rises, you see the buildings that you've been involved with, and you can go to those venues after they're done, take your family there and your friends and say, yeah, I was part of this. And it's exciting.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Jack. So for our next question, we'll have each of the three panelists answer and provide specifics for their individual sector. And that question is, how does a project get started? Let's go ahead and start with Michelle in the civil sector.
Sure. So as I mentioned, it's definitely publicly driven. So sometimes it's driven by need or demand. Sometimes it's driven by policy, regulations, environmental, things like that. So a need is identified for either an increased utility capacity, utilities to a new area where they don't already exist, an issue with an existing utility like a leaking water line or sewer that doesn't meet capacity, or roads that need to be rehabbed, or a new freeway that needs to be built. So it's kind of driven by some kind of public need. And then from there, it goes to funding source. And so depending on what it is that's being built, if it's owned by a city, or if it's a county or a state, or even a federal issue, typically the projects aren't owned by federal entities, but they may receive their funding via federal, kind of depending on the scope of the project. So it kind of goes from public need to then funding availability. And like I said, sometimes it's a vote. So when we have propositions related to taxes for increased roads and freeways, or for light rail, or recently the city of Phoenix, there's a big water line project that's just kicking off, and that was part of a big proposition and vote that increased water rates last year. So there's a lot of public involvement and votes, and a project can be identified, really worked on through, typically it has to go through some design process so that an estimate can be put on it. So a lot of work goes into it, and then it may end up being not ever pursued because the vote doesn't get there to get the funding in place. So a lot of pre-work to get things off the ground, as many as, a project we just finishing up, actually the picture that's on the screen, that tunnel, that is a county owned project, and we started being involved in that 7 years ago, and it just went to construction this year. So, a long lead time to get things off the ground.
Excellent, excellent. Next, we'll go to the commercial sector, and we'll have Jack answer the question.
On how the projects get started, it really comes down to the owners of a business, and I'll take Amazon as an example. They'll figure out what city they want to build in. They'll start looking for the land, make sure the land's big enough to meet the needs of the size building they need. Once they purchase the land, they'll pretty much have a conceptual design of the building they want. Then once the land is bought, they'll send that out to architects, start getting into the real meat and potatoes of the building, have them design it, and then they will entail their sub-designers, the electricians, the plumbing engineers, civil engineers, structural engineers, and that'll really come out with a good set of drawings, and they place that out to bid with subcontractors and actually general contractors first. Then the general contractor will send out bids to the subcontractors, electricians, plumbers, fire protection, framers, you name it. Once those contracts are established, then they start the dirt work and start doing the building. And the general contractor pretty much takes the show over from there. And the owner just continues the funding to the general contractor until the building is complete.
Next, very important question. Who makes the decisions on a job site? Michelle, who's the boss on one of your job sites?
Me. I'm just kidding. The general contractor, I think we've all alluded to that the general contractor plays a key role. That's who's kind of been awarded the responsibility from the owner to oversee and complete the project successfully. But definitely then the engineer of record on our projects is a big thing. They're kind of the ones who have approved the plans and can dictate what works and what doesn't. And if any changes are needed, they're who approves them. So the engineer of record plays a big role in our world, and then regulatory agencies. So depending on who the owner is and what the scope of the project is, you can have multiple different regulators involved. So again, referring back to this project that's on the screen, it was a Maricopa County flood control project, but the Arizona Department of Water Resources and the Army Corps of Engineers are also involved because it involves a dam. So you're answering to kind of three different owners in essence. So regulators are a big deal in the civil world.
Thank you for that. On the commercial side of things, how about you?
That's the general contractor. They are definitely the boss on the site. They're the one that does all the scheduling. They're the ones that pretty much steer the ship on where all the trades are supposed to be at, when they're supposed to be completed with those areas. And they're the ones who have to answer to the owners to make sure that the timelines are being met. Mainly because if they don't hit the timeline, the owner starts losing money. So the general contractor has a huge responsibility of being the boss and making that project flow as easily and as timely as possible.
Thank you. Rich, how about the residential side?
Yeah, same. The home builder is the general contractor. It's interesting in this day and age where there's such a limited amount of resources inside of the trades. It's sort of like the tail's wagging the dog nowadays. But certainly the contractor is required to, or the GC, the builder, is responsible for scheduling and organizing and getting everybody in place where they need to be.
Okay. And who orders the materials and who do they report to?
Yeah, so in Arizona, each contractor is responsible for ordering and delivering their own materials. The general contractor or the builder will specify what kind of materials are required for the house, and then the contractors will procure those orders for each individual house.
Excellent. Well, thank you, and thanks to all of our panelists today. And even a construction pro like me learned something today, so I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Great, thank you.